When the 2011 tsunami hit Japan's Sendai terminal, it left hundreds of shipping containers scattered across the wreckage of the port. The financial fallout for exporters reached far beyond the dock. Companies that had selected the wrong three-letter code for their shipping contracts were suddenly liable for millions of dollars in losses, even though the cargo was already sitting at the terminal. This happens because international trade lacks a single default legal code. Without a pre-negotiated agreement, a manufacturer in Germany and a buyer in China have no way to determine who pays for the truck to the port, who books the ocean freight, or whose insurance covers a crate drop during loading. To solve this, the International Chamber of Commerce established a universal language for global transactions. They're called Incoterms, short for International Commercial Terms. Updated in 2020, these 11 codes act as a standardized shorthand used in contracts worldwide. Each code marks the precise moment that liability for the cargo shifts from the seller to the buyer. The 11 Incoterms function on a sliding scale of responsibility. At one end is EXW, where the seller simply makes goods available. From there, the buyer takes all risk. At the other end is DDP, or Delivered Duty Paid. Here, the seller assumes the heaviest burden. They pay for freight, handle all transit risks, and clear the goods through foreign customs right up to the buyer's warehouse. Since most companies can't realistically manage a foreign export or an overseas import alone, they must negotiate a balance somewhere in the middle. Finding that balance requires avoiding a mistake common among even experienced traders, misapplying the term FOB. FOB, or free on board, was designed for traditional bulk cargo, like grain or steel, where risk transfers once goods cross the ship's rail. But modern containers aren't loaded like bulk grain. A seller usually drops a sealed container at a terminal days before a vessel even arrives. Using an FOB contract for a container creates a massive gap in liability. If a container is crushed by a forklift at the terminal, the seller remains legally responsible for goods they handed over days ago. The ICC recommends using FCA, or free carrier, instead. It transfers risk the moment the container is delivered to the terminal or the carrier. Applying maritime terms from the age of sail to modern logistics leaves exporters responsible for accidents they can no longer prevent. This gets even more counterintuitive with the C category of terms, like CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. Importers assume whoever pays freight holds the risk. In a CIF deal, the seller pays to move goods to the destination, but cost and risk are separate. The seller pays the voyage, but the buyer owns risk the moment goods board at origin. If the cargo is lost at sea in a storm, the buyer must file the insurance claim. The seller's obligation ended at the loading dock. Assuming cost and risk move together is a misunderstanding that leaves importers responsible for losses they thought the seller had covered. Choosing an Incoterm is a negotiation between three competing factors: risk, cost, and control. Adjusting one inevitably changes the others. An exporter who wants to ensure specific delivery times through their own carriers must accept higher freight costs and a longer window of risk. There are 3 rules for managing these trade-offs. First, always include the publication year, like Incoterms 2020, to ensure the contract isn't governed by outdated rules. Second, specify the named place with total precision. Do not just list a city. Name the exact warehouse address or terminal gate where the handover happens. Finally, never use C-only terms for sealed containers. Mastering these codes allows a seller in Mumbai and a buyer in Dubai to communicate with legal precision, ensuring the shipment and the profit survives the journey.